Hello everyone and welcome back to AustinPlus commentary, where today, let's discuss the rise and fall of the DCEU. Live action DC movies have always been something that people want, but people want it done right. So let's talk about the DCEU and if we can learn anything from it. So let's get into it. So for those who don't know, the DCEU started in 2013 and ended in 2023, so it lasted a whole decade. Sort of, it kind of died a lot earlier than it did. But The Man of Steel was the first movie to set this universe on its course, and it wasn't a bad movie to say, and it wasn't the best, but it was one of the first Superman movies we'd had in years, besides Smallville, which is a show, but it was one of the first Superman movies we had in years, so it definitely felt like a triumph. And when this came out, it then gave directors and producers the idea to do some sort of DC universe or expand it with new characters. When this movie came out, it was supposed to be a solo project or like an independent, but so many people requested something like Batman and other major characters such as Wonder Woman, and all of the above. So they produced Dawn of Justice, which I doubt was the perfect way to go. It probably was the worst thing to do, but it was what people asked for and they tried to execute it so they could get more viewership, obviously. The story had so many flaws that people only looked at many years later. At the time, people thought, oh, it's an amazing DC movie. It just doesn't make sense and it's just not that good, especially when you look at it. But people were excited that we were getting a new live action Batman. First one, I think, for a while. I don't know who the one before that was, but then we had Wonder Woman, then we had Doomsday. Doomsday, I think, was the one thing that people appreciated wasn't the best of its efforts, and it wasn't the greatest aspect of the movie, but it still did hold up. The Suicide Squad was released later on that year, but it was its own thing, and it did pretty good, and I really enjoyed it, and I know so many other people did, so that was one of the very good things to come out of that, I would say. But and I think the fact that many people enjoyed it explains why they did one about 5 years later. The make and break moment mainly came up between 2017 and 2020. At this moment, we had gotten Wonder Woman and other confirmed characters from the Dawn of Justice, which led to a solo Wonder Woman film, which then people thought was decent again at the time, but it had countless flaws. But still later that year, they released a Justice League movie that we all know how that went. The villain wasn't at all what we were expecting. We got Steppenwolf, a character no one knew who he was and what the whole idea around him was, but he was one of the main villains. 4 years later, I do believe it was 4 years later, they released Zack Snyder's cut, because Zack Snyder was originally supposed to do his version of the Justice League until unfortunate events occurred, but then he came back to refilm it, and it was far better than that. But the thing is, with this, it does create two different stories, and obviously they preferred one that was released 4 years later rather than the one that was nearly 2 hours long, but it wasn't. This one was 4 hours long. It was so much better. There was so much story. They used better characters such as Desaad, Darkseid, iconic Justice League villains, but they then confirmed about 2 months later that they're not doing anything with it. What? I think this DCU could have gone on for so much longer and employed James Gunn in the process to do other projects, and it could have stayed the way it was. It would have had a rocky start, but if they stayed with the Snyderverse, it would have been amazing. But no, they didn't. Green Lantern was bad. A lot of people wondered if Green Lantern, the movie, released with Ryan Reynolds, was a part of it. It wasn't. But and I will say this now: Green Lantern was bad, but this was worse. Later on, between 2017 and 2020, we had projects such as Shazam, Aquaman, Birds of Prey, which all of them I liked, but people weren't such fans. Shazam was a very big popular one. Birds of Prey, not really. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the films I actually watched more of because I like Ewan McGregor, and I have never really seen him as a villain. Very interesting to see. And also, Harley Quinn's character is just so funny, and she's got no filter, and it's just a comedy. So that's why I really like that movie. Aquaman, I used to actually really like Aquaman, especially when this movie came about. I love them, like Black Manta. I think it's cool. But then it was just with the second film, it just got too repetitive. Decline, I call it the decline bonfire. By the time that Wonder Woman 2 came around, there was a very big decline. But then the Snyder Cut was released, which was announced. They announced, obviously, they were not doing a Snyderverse. Brain cell capacity was very high that day. The Suicide Squad was the first official project released by James Gunn, which was, I think, was a triumph in terms of cinema, especially for when it came out. And obviously, you had the issues with COVID, but it was still amazing. But then it was preceded about 6 months later with a show called Peacemaker, which we've got Peacemaker Season 2 coming out tomorrow. Today, I don't know when this releases. It might be tomorrow, it might be today, I don't know. Later on in 2022, or I think it might have been 2023, I'm not too sure, but The Rock made his official debut in the DCEU as Black Adam, which had been talked about for years. It was one of those rumored things that had been around since before, especially since Shazam came out. But we finally got it, and it was such a weak film, but the plot was phenomenal, and I think that's what really hurt. The plot was amazing, but it was just so weak of a film. Now, I think what ticked this whole universe off was the fact that you had the Wonder Woman 2 film. I think that was the eventual decline. It was started going downhill, trajectory that was too hard for the Flash to even keep up with. But then when the Flash was actually released in 2023, that was the official nail in the coffin. That was the hammer had been battered on every scene of that film. I'm not too sure how it made it as far as it did. I would argue that the DCU was basically dead, and the nail in the coffin was after Shazam 2. I came out of that cinema saying, well, this was a load of shit. Now, I love the Flash as a hero. I grew up with the CW Flash. A lot of people hated on it. I didn't. I think because the reason I grew up with it, I had some sort of bias towards it. But I would say, I held out hope for the Flash movie to hope it was good. But then we had the controversy with Ezra Miller, and then you just had a really shit story. So, who would have guessed this would have been the death of the DCEU?
Well, no fucking shit.
Personally, I would say the Suicide Squad, Shazam, Birds of Prey, the Suicide Squad, Black Adam, but Blue Beetle and Peacemaker were all of my favorites in terms of the best DCEU projects to come out of it. Mainly, and I do believe some of these they're actually going to try and carry over. I don't think it will be Shazam. I think they're going to go with a whole new Suicide Squad. Then they're not gonna have Black Adam, because The Rock said I don't think he's gonna play Black Adam again. But Blue Beetle and Peacemaker are the ones that are definitely coming to the DCU, which I'm very happy with. The worst DCEU projects to come out of it, I would say, with Dawn of Justice, Justice League, Wonder Woman 2, Shazam 2, and The Flash. So you could definitely tell there's a link. It's mainly the later ones I didn't like. I love DC movies as much as the next person, but these were just horrible. We all know that the DCEU was nothing to write home about, but I am sure that James Gunn knows what he's doing in terms of the DCU. Personally, I think Superman, the film, was a bit of a blunder, but I still do hold out hope, because Creature Commandos, for a show that is a cartoon and everything, that was peak. But I think the Suicide Squad type stuff is where he shines. So I would say that the Suicide Squad is more his purview, but we need more superheroes to concrete the Suicide Squad. But everyone, that's the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe and comment what you would like to see on this very channel. And without further ado, hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!
Yeah!